Well, welcome back to Mountain Jim Card Collectibles. I hope you're out there having a great week so far. So today I'm taking a break from, doing my usual previews of sports cards, non-sports cards, TCG. Well, there is, quite a few products coming out. But the reason why is because I picked up on this article that was just released yesterday. It has to do with a private citizen in Austin who's filing an antitrust lawsuit against the Topps Fanatics corporate machine. And this lawsuit is basically piggybacking off of the Panini lawsuit against Topps Fanatics and their alleged, monopoly. Now, the thing about monopolies in the United States is monopolies aren't necessarily illegal. But it's the way of forming a monopoly that can be illegal. And that is why Topps and Fanatics is embroiled in lawsuits currently. And when you begin to dig through the nuts and bolts of how Topps Fanatics created this monopoly with sports cards, sports leagues, whatever, it appears to me that they could have possibly broken, the law that's relative to the Sherman Act, which is a federal law that's on the books. I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, I've been recommended to go to law school by 3 of my college professors, but I never went. Why? Because I was burned out at college. And maybe I was good at, journalism law, which I aced no problem. And I was recommended to go to law school for that fact. I still haven't decided to ever go to law school. Why? I prefer to do business. That's just me. Anyway, when you get into this story from Front Office Sports that was released today, like the headline says, new suit alleges Fanatics monopoly increased trading card prices. Well, you begin to touch off on another issue, and that's the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. So let's read what that says. And this is just from the Google AI overview. That's called Gemini. But anyway, let's read what it says. The Sherman Act, passed in 1890, is a cornerstone of U.S. antitrust law, aiming to promote competition and prevent monopolies by outlawing certain business practices. Key provisions. Section 1 prohibits contracts, combinations, or conspiracies in restraint of trade. Section 2 makes it illegal to monopolize, attempt to monopolize, or combine or conspire to monopolize any part of interstate or foreign trade. The Federal Trade Commission and the U.S. Department of Justice, the DOJ, are responsible for enforcing federal antitrust laws, including the Sherman Act. While the Sherman Act is the foundational law, other important laws include the Clayton Antitrust Act of 1914 and the Federal Trade Commission Act of 1914. Monopolization versus monopoly. It's important to note that having a monopoly, a single entity controlling a market, is not inherently illegal, but the actions taken to create or maintain that monopoly, such as engaging in anti-competitive practices, can violate the Sherman Act. Yeah. And so everyone doing business on U.S. soil has to abide by this law. And a lot of these big corporations with a lot of money, I know they're like Godzilla, especially the Topps Fanatics corporate monster. It just feels like they don't want to follow the rules. Section 2 of the Sherman Act makes it unlawful for any person to monopolize or attempt to monopolize or combine or conspire with any other person or persons to monopolize any part of the trade or commerce among the several states or with foreign nations. And when you begin to dig into, how the sports leagues all, decide to break their contract with Panini, go in with Michael Rubin and the Topps Fanatics corporate monopoly, there's just a lot of issues with this Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 that you begin to question it. And I'm not a lawyer. And you just begin to question it. What is going on here? All right. So let's get back to the previous article. So, like this article says, the suit borrows heavily from an earlier one. If Front Office Sports thing will let me read their thing, I don't know what's going on with Front Office Sports thing. The suit borrows heavily from an earlier one rival trading card company Panini. Fanatics blasted it as baseless and fundamentally flawed. And this was written by Daniel Kaplan. This was released yesterday, March 19th, 2025. Okay. A new lawsuit claims Fanatics and its partners in U.S. pro sports illegally monopolized the trading card market, increase in prices for consumers. So it's not just the bad guys. Topps Fanatics aren't just the bad guys. The leagues are the bad guys as well. At least according to this lawsuit. The suit claims defense conspired to drive competitors out of business and raise prices. And then this previous paragraph. What makes the latest iteration notable is the breadth of the defense. The list includes Michael Rubin's sprawling company, as well as the NBA, NHL, and NFL union for players in all three leagues in the group licensing Venture One team. Many, if not most, of the allegations in the 47-page complaint are also found in the Panini lawsuit, which a federal judge recently gave the green light to proceed. Some law firms will piggyback on existing suits and file similar cases after a motion to dismiss fails, which recently happened in the Panini lawsuit. And then we have the typical response from Topps Fanatics, and I'll just read that. This baseless complaint is fundamentally flawed in numerous respects, and we look forward to presenting to the court how we continue to elevate and enhance the collecting experience by relentlessly focusing on collectors. Whatever that means. Because they're not focusing on collectors. Don't pretend they are. Topps and Fanatics focuses on putting a bunch of money in their bank account. And that's all that the focus is on. And they have to do certain things to do it. The man who filed the new lawsuit is an Austin resident named Robert Scaturo. Lawyer John Radice, who is representing Scaturo, emailed, "I don't have anything to add on the record other than what's in the complaint." The core of both lawsuits in 2021, Fanatics began acquiring trading card licenses from the leagues and union by signing 10 to 20-year contracts, offering equity as an inducement to do the deal. Now, right there, I'll say it again, I'm not a lawyer, but right there, that would appear to break the Sherman Antitrust Act. Just by reading that right there, the core of both lawsuits in 2021, Fanatics began acquiring trading card licenses from the leagues and union by signing 10 to 20-year contracts, offering equity, yes, as an inducement to do the deal. By 2026, the lawsuit alleges Fanatics will control 100% of the trading card market. Well, depends on how you look at the trading card market. They don't own, Nintendo, Pokemon, or Konami, Yu-Gi-Oh, some of these other TCG that are really big. The collective equity stake of the Leagues and Players Association plus NHL and MLS is worth approximately $5 to $10 billion, the complaint alleges. In this way, Fanatics and each of the leagues and each of their player associations agree to split the monopoly profits caused by the anti-competitive agreements. Yes, once again, I'm not sure how you can read the Sherman Antitrust Act and agree that Fanatics and these leagues did not work together to create a monopoly. I mean, it just really appears to me that that is the case. According to the lawsuit, prices for MLB cards from Topps, which Fanatics acquired in 2022, have risen 50%. I think they've risen more since 2021, while Panini cards remain flat or declined. A chart in the complaint, however, shows Panini prices declining before the Topps acquisition and rising afterward. Fanatics rights for NBA cards begin in September. Okay, so the new suit claims Fanatics bought the printer company that Panini used for 90% of its cards and then slowed down deliveries to the competitor. Fanatics is also charged with using its market power to require local card shops to accept minimum price requirements or be cut off from supply, withholding supply to shops that sell trading cards on business-to-business websites, enforcing case breakers on Fanatics' new case-breaking platform. And this thing right here, I remember my local card shop owner complained about this thing, that we just went over about these local card shops. Fanatics has successfully foreclosed 100% of the market for major U.S. professional sports leagues trading cards for the next decade at least, the complaint charges. Rivals have been sidelined due to these exclusive agreements, and consumers will suffer. Yes, it's true. I mean, we live in a market that's more or less unlicensed product these days. Whether, it doesn't matter who's showing the stuff out, and there's a lot of reasons for it. And then the licensed product has just turned into this thing where it's like the corporation's holding it hostage, and you have to pay, all these hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for just a few cards. And then it gets more into the Panini case. The Panini case focuses on alleged moves by Fanatics to oust its Texas-based rival from the marketplace. The new suit, a consumer class action case, is brought on behalf of all consumers who bought trading cards from the defense starting January 1st, 2022, and until the alleged conduct ceases. And then it gets into some more of these complaints in this lawsuit. It says here that Fanatics raided Panini staff using threats and false statements to poach dozens of Panini employees. Fanatics threatened to blacklist Panini employees from ever working in the industry again when Fanatics' exclusive long-term licenses took effect, unless they immediately quit Panini and joined Fanatics. Fanatics used these raids as an inducement to get the NFL Players Association in 2023 to end its deal with Panini 3 years early. An arbitrator would later order the union to pay Panini $7 million in damages. Once again, it looks like overall, right there, this Sherman Antitrust Act, it's been torpedoed by Panini and Fanatics, and they're pretend we didn't do anything. Seriously? Fanatics strong-armed athletes to refuse agreements with Panini, using a similar combination of payoffs and threats. For example, Fanatics threatened that players would never get an autographed deal when Fanatics' long-term contracts took effect in the future unless they immediately signed with Fanatics. Fanatics used its monopoly power to cut off sales of worn jerseys to Panini. Boy, once again, the Sherman Antitrust Act thing, it's not looking good. And I don't know if these guys at Topps and Fanatics have ever read the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, but it appears maybe they don't, or they have their guys up, Republican parties up there, in their eyes. They're all pro-corporation, and maybe they are for now, but it's not always going to be that way. Trading cards require a license from both the league for team and league intellectual property, and the players for NIL, name, image, and likeness rights. With trading cards, the players' rights are ceded to the players' unions for group licensing. Unions for players in the NFL and MLB have used one team in recent years to sell those rights, okay? So, when you read this article, and it's becoming quite apparent that this whole scheme of Fanatics, they're going to be mired in lawsuits for a long time, in my opinion. I'm guessing that after this lawsuit, whether it's ruled for the person who filed it, or whether it's ruled for Topps and Fanatics, there's going to be more. There's going to be more and more, because there's going to be a lot of people who are angry, including me. It just really feels like the U.S. has turned into a country club in so many aspects, It's hard to enjoy living in the U.S. these days, isn't it? For so many reasons. Even for a simple hobby like collecting sports cards, which, honestly, growing up, I never thought that I wouldn't be able to afford the hobby. But more and more people have been driven out because of, these, I can't say that they're proven monopolistic practices, but, when you read some of the basics of the Sherman Antitrust Act, it's hard to disagree with, what these corporations are doing to build the monopoly. It really is anti-competitive behavior. And all of these leagues, all, the Topps Fanatics umbrella, it just appears that they're all in it. And we've all been priced out of the hobby except for, wealthy people. Maybe some wealthy people on YouTube that, are monetized, they can afford their cards. These breakers can afford their cards. But, I like to see just normal, average working class people be able to afford these cards again. And the monopoly is not going to allow it. It's hard to, like it says, monopolies aren't inherently illegal. It's how they're created that's illegal. And we went over this article. I know that, this Panini lawsuit is heating up with Topps Fanatics for a lot of reasons. I mean, you have to see it. You have to see, the behind the scenes work that Topps Fanatics has done, and why, many of us who were always, more or less able to afford cards starting in, 2021, 2022, when Topps Fanatics started to acquire all this stuff, all of a sudden, we just can't buy that stuff anymore, Why? Well, you have to survive. I have to pay bills. I have to, electricity, gas, I have to pay food every month, pay for the internet. And, it's just, if you're from a rich family, I'm sure you can keep up with the Topps Fanatics monopoly. Not even think twice about it. Hell, you probably have a little fan, a little flag. It's an awesome monopoly. It's great. It's great for me. But overall, I think it just hurts the hobby and the market in general. So anyway, if you have any different opinions on this, leave some comments. Comments are great. I always like to thank my subscribers and my recent subscribers, because you are the ones keeping this channel together. And if you're a viewer, thank you for watching. But if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe so I don't have to continue doing, free community service for Google and YouTube. And I can also improve the channel, which would be awesome. Anyway, I'm out of here. Bye.